Welcome back. This is lesson 9 of the Dynamic WordPress course for beginners. In our previous lesson, we talked about how you can build out your archive pages for each of your CPTs on your WordPress website. We talked about how you can make those pages dynamic by using queries that are in themselves dynamic. Now, in this lesson, we're going to pick up right where we left off by discussing single post templates. And when you talk about single post templates, what comes to your mind? First of all, let's make a case for why we even need that in the first place. Let's come back to our WordPress website right here. And if you scroll down, you see we have a number of projects right here. If we click on one of this project, let's say AppNiche as an example, let's just click on it and view AppNiche in the front end. Our aim right now is to see what AppNiche contains. The project's called AppNiche. What does it contain? And here we're met with a blank page. And what we find here, where we have this title right here, is actually what we know as the single post. Now, how do we add elements to this page so that, we can describe whatever was contained inside of this project? How do we do that? The manual way to do it will be to edit this particular page with Elementor. We can come inside of edit this project, and inside of here, we can decide then, okay, we want to edit this entire thing with Elementor. But that's not a smart way to do this. And why do we know that? Because of the fact that the design for each of these posts or projects, as is the case for the project CPT, each of them are going to have the exact same design layout. The only thing that's going to be different is the content of each of these. Now, what does that tell you that we need? Whenever this situation that I just described is the case, just keep in mind that what you really need is a template. So let's build out a template for our project and see how it all works. We're going to come back to our dashboard right here. We'll come inside of Crocoblock. We'll come right here to Theme Builder. Inside of Theme Builder, what we plan to do right now is to create a single post template. You see inside of here, we have our project CPT. We have our archive template already done for us. Now inside of here, we need to create one for our project single. That's what it is, project single. So sometimes you hear me say single project. Sometimes you hear me say project single. We're talking about the exact same thing. Now, right here, we can click on plus to add a new template. Already it builds out our conditions for us just the way we want it to. This is excellent. We're going to click on create. And once we do create that, we're going to then start to build out each of the areas or the sections of this particular template. Now, this is okay as the title, project single is fine. What we need to do now is just match this to our theme header. Now, what theme header are we going to make use of here? I took the liberty to go through and build out a simple wireframe for you so that this is going to just give us some visual direction, if you know what I mean. Now, if we come back inside of Figma right here, you see we had the wireframe layout I did in the very first lesson. If you recall that, this was what we worked on. I took the liberty to do these other two wireframe designs right here. Nothing too fancy right here, just square boxes and circles to help to give us some kind of visual direction. So inside of this second one right here, this is what we want to use as our visual layout for our project single template. We'll just have an image right here at the top. We'll have the title of the project, whatever it is. We're going to have some project metadata, what I call project metadata right here. What it's just going to contain is maybe right here, the date the project was completed, maybe a title like date, and then the date it was completed. Then maybe we could have maybe a title like client name and the name of the client. And we could have things like the skills. You remember we connected skills to each of the projects. We could have those inside of here. So that's the idea here. Inside of here, maybe we could just have some description of, something relevant to that project. Maybe a story of how the project was thought about and all of that. You can write that inside of here. It really doesn't matter what you put inside of here. This is entirely your choice. Now down here, maybe you could have more things about the project, maybe images about that particular project that a person can take a look at. Maybe we could have that right here. And finally, we could have, let's say, more projects, something to show other projects on the website that the person who is interested can take a look at. And the footer right here is the exact same as we had before. Nothing too fancy. It's going to remain the exact same. And on the right side here, we have a layout that I have made for the blog templates that we intend to build out still within this one video. So without further ado, let's try to build this out. We're going to try to make this as dynamic as possible. Remember that we want to reduce as much as possible any amount of manual work we do inside of here, because we always think for the future. We expect that in the future, things are going to change, so we ensure that everything is dynamic so that it can change very, very swiftly. Let's go ahead now to build this out. We're just going to come back right here. Because we know the header is the same as it was in other areas of the website, we're just going to add from library instead of creating a new template. We're going to use the site-wide header right here by just clicking on use, and that's going to be used for the header. Inside of the footer, we're going to do the same thing, add from library. It's going to show us all our footers, and we'll just use one of them. This is very fast, not so. Let's go ahead now to build out the template body of this particular template. We can do that by clicking on override theme body, and then we need to create a new template. So when we click on create new template, we select what page builder we want to use. In this case, it's Elementor. We're going to select that, give this template a name. In this case, we're going to call this project single template, or whatever you intend to call it. This is entirely your choice. We're going to click on create and go ahead to create that. Once it's created, we click on go to editor, and it's just going to open Elementor and allow us to begin to add content to these particular Elementor templates. Remember, this is the visual direction we're following. We're just trying to build things out as quickly as possible. First of all, in the hero section right here, we just need an image, a wide image for this particular project. So let's do that. We're going to switch back here. Let's add a new section. Let's make it a flexbox container. We're going to make it a column layout. It really doesn't matter. Inside of here, all we need to enter here is the image. So we're going to add a new widget, call that widget dynamic image. And why are we using dynamic image? Because we want to fetch a dynamic value. What we have here, inside of here, is the dynamic image for these particular projects. And as you can see right here, it's fetching a dynamic image from somewhere inside of the website. I took the liberty to add some images to our posts, and I can tell you right now that this is fetching this from the blog post that we have on the website. But this is not actually a project image, because we know for sure it's not one of those that we already have. So I need this to be able to understand that the templates that I'm building this for is actually not for my blog posts, but it is for my project's CPT. To do that is very easy. We can come inside of the settings right here, the single settings, click on that. And here under preview settings, this is just asking us the question. What are you trying to work on? Are you trying to work on projects? Are you trying to work on posts? What are you working on? Just so that whatever we fetch dynamically here can show us things that make sense in that context. Does that make sense? Good. So we can click on preview settings, and instead of post, we can select projects right here. And once we select that, we can click out of it, maybe click on publish if we so desire. And if we want to, it says here, please reload page after applying preview settings. And why do we want to do that? So that it understands that the new context is project and not post. Let's refresh this. Let's see what we have right now. We see right here, it shows a different image. And which image is this? It's an image of the project called Appnish, the same projects that we're viewing in the front end. Which of those projects did it decide to choose here? Well, it just picked the latest project and shows us information from that one project, which is totally fine if you ask me. Now, the next thing we want to do is to be able to maybe after hitting publish, we can come inside of the front end here. Let's just view the project Appnish right here. Let's refresh it. Let's see what we have. And as you can see, very easily, you notice the image is what you have right there in front of you. Very, very nice. We can go ahead to build out the other parts of it right now. But first of all, let's try to style this image widget just a bit. You can see the source here is from the post thumbnail or the featured image of that particular project. That's dynamic, and that is what we need. Maybe we can come inside of style and adjust some things, like let's say the border type. We can say it's a solid border type, so that there is a solid border around that, just to help to demarcate the image from the body of the page and give it some kind of visual oomph, if you know what I mean. Now where we have border radius, we can come down here and click on the plus icon, and we can give this a border radius of, let's say, 1 rem, something like that. And this just gives it a very nice corner rounding right there. We can also select the container, and inside of advanced, we want to give it a padding top and bottom that makes complete sense. We're going to unlink the values so that we can give the top and the bottom individually. Let's say it's 4 rem at the top, and at the bottom it's 4 rem. And let's click on publish. Let's come to the front end. Let's see how things are looking. If we do refresh, and this looks very, very nice. So this just shows us, well, this is what you need to know about this particular project in terms of the image of that project. And it's nice, it looks okay. Maybe we can adjust the top and the bottom margin a bit, maybe to 2 rem, top and bottom, see how it looks. Let's publish, come to the front end, refresh. We're going to be as fast as possible. Let's just try to eyeball these things and visually understand our direction. We're going to come inside of here. We're done with that. We can decide to select the dynamic image. We can come inside of here. We can give this image a custom alt, which is just a description of the image. In this case, we can select here a dynamic tag value and fetch the title of this particular project. So we can come here to current object field, and inside of field here, we want to select title. So it fetches the title of this particular project. But if it just says the name Applish as an example, it really doesn't make sense to screen readers for people using assistive devices. So we want to come to advanced, and before we want to say image of projects, and maybe just add a space so that it says image of project Applish, image of project whatever. You get what I mean, right? Great. Now inside of container, we want to click on that, come to layout, come down here to additional options. As we did before, we want to select this as a section element. So that is our first section down. We can decide to call this, maybe name this inside of the structure panel. This is entirely our choice. But for the sake of speeding through these and helping you to understand how all of this connects together, I'm going to skip that phase for now. Now after this, we can add another container just below that. We're just going to come down here, add in a new container. If we want to, we can duplicate the previous one we had before by just clicking on duplicate. We have that container right below here. Now we can delete the image inside of there because we don't need that image right now. You can just click on delete and it's gone. Now the next thing we want to do is take a look at what we have here. We have inside of here the title that's going to be, the name of this particular project that we're working on. If we come back inside of the editor here, we can very easily add that. We can drag our heading widget inside of here. And right here, we see the HTML tag is H2. We want to change that to H1. And why are we changing that to H1? Because it's the most important heading on this page. And if we change it to H1, the size of that heading also increases. But as you recall, we can come inside of style. We can adjust that heading style size to maybe a H2 so that it's a bit smaller. And I think I kind of like the visual direction of this. Now we can come back to content. It still remains a H1 as a tag, and this is absolutely fine. Where do we get the title from? Instead of typing in a raw title right now that's going to show on all of the projects, you know what to do, right? You come inside of dynamic tags, and inside of here, you want to come to current object field, come to field, and you want to select title. And that's just going to return the title of these particular projects. Let's come back to the design. What we have right here on the left-hand side is metadata about that project. Let's try to build this thing out as fast as possible. Inside of here, just below the heading, let's add in a new container. And why are we adding a new container? Because we have 2 sections inside of here. We want to be able to arrange this in a way that makes complete sense. So let's do just that. Inside of this container, we can add 2 more containers because we have, those 2 elements right there. Click on that. We're going to add another container again. This one, we're just going to drag it out here so that we have 2 containers inside the main container right here. That main container, if we so desire, we can change that from flexbox to grid. And inside of here, the grid columns, we want to maybe use the pencil icon right here so that we can specify, the size of each of those grid columns. I would assume that the first one would take 1 fractional unit and the second one would take 2 fractional units. So I'm just going to type 2FR. And for the rows, we can remove the rows to just 1 row. And this kind of gives us, the kind of layouts that we're looking for. One is twice as big as the other. Now in the first grid cell right here, we have our first container inside of it. Now inside of that container, we want to add all of this. But first, let's add a padding inside of there so that whatever is added inside of that container is not at the edge. Because right now, if you add one element to that container, let's say we want to add a heading widget inside of there, you see it's, right to the edge of that container. We want to be able to add some space inside of it. To do that, we select the container, we come inside of advanced, we come here to the padding, maybe select rem, and we want to give this maybe 1 rem as the padding. So around that, there is some space. We can also, if we want to give that container some border, we can come inside of border type, select solid. We want to also adjust the border radius right here, maybe come to rem and select that as 0.5. This is fine. And then we want to select the background color as maybe something like this, not something too harsh, something very light and beautiful. And here, although this is H2 and it is semantically correct, the heading right here looks like a H2, although it's a H1. So we have H1, then we have H2s following through. So inside of here, H2, that's fine. But the size of the H2 is too big, so we can come inside of style and we can adjust that to maybe the size of a H5, something like that. Maybe even give it the size of a H6 if we so desire. And we can call this maybe project completed dates. Something like that is fine. Now that that is done, we need to have the dates that this project was completed, and we can make that value a dynamic one. But where do we get that value from? Let's just hit publish first of all, come to the front end, refresh this. Let's see how things are going so far. If we scroll down, we have this so far. It's fine. I mean, we've not gone very far, but we can go very far. We can just come inside of each of these projects and we can take note that there is really nothing inside of the list of projects right here. We can, if we want to, just begin to add some dummy text. I can just paste in some dummy text right now. And this text is, it doesn't make any sense as it relates to this project. But I expect you to put something that makes sense in your own case. Now we see we have this image right here, but how do we add, let's say, the dates that this project was completed, stuff like that? How do we do that? We can come inside of here to the back end. Let's come to JetEngine. We're going to go inside of meta boxes because we want to create a new meta box for the sake of adding project details. So inside of meta boxes, we can come to add new here and we can just call it project details as the name of this particular meta box. Let's call it that, project details. Now, for which meta box is it for? This is for post. That's correct. We come down here to for post types. We want to say it's for project post type. We select that. Inside of meta field, we want to begin to add each of these information. So inside of here, we want to say projects completed dates as, one of the fields that we need right here. Inside of the field type, we want to say that this is for date, and that's totally fine. We add another meta field. Let's say we want to add a meta field for project client or the clients that this project was built for. We can say project clients right here. And for this one, it's fine as a text field as we see it right here. So we leave it just as that. Now, going by what we have inside of our Figma file, let's just take a look at that Figma file again. We still need to add one more meta field inside of here, which is going to hold all of the images associated with each of these projects. So let's say we want to show a number of images right here, saying these are the number of images a person can look at associated with these particular projects. How do we add those? We can use another meta field right here. Let's just say project images is the name we want to call this. We can just type in here project images. And down here inside of field type, we can select gallery as the field type. Let's just come down here to gallery. And why are we selecting gallery? Because of the fact that we need to add multiple images all at once. So inside of the value format here, we can select any of these value formats we so desire. The point of selecting this will be so that we can pull this information into the front end. I recommend that you select array with media ID and URL, and that way all of the images you set inside of that meta field will have stored both the ID of that image and the URL linking to that image. So whatever you want to use that for, you will be able to use this in the front end. And if we want to add a description, we can do that, but we don't want to do that. Let's close all of that up. We're going to update or publish that meta box. Ensure to toggle on this delete metadata option right here. If you don't understand why I did that, I covered this in a previous lesson, so be sure to check that out. Now, if you come inside of one of these projects, let's say this project app niche is an example, we have this lorem ipsum dummy text thingy going on inside of here. Whatever you want to type in here as the page content or the post content, you can definitely do that. But I just added some dummy text, just, for the sake of adding some text here. Let's refresh this so we can see all of the meta boxes here. And once this is refreshed, we want to add all of the data associated with a project called app niche. So let's scroll down here, the project completed date. We can just pick a date in the past. Let's say sometime in April. Let's say April 19. Inside of project client, we can say that project client is Crocoblock. And down here inside of project images, we can choose media, and it's just going to open the media library. If you have the images here, you can pick it. If you don't have it, you can upload the images. I'm just going to click on select file. It's going to open this, on my desktop here. Let me just pick a bunch of these files. Let's say I want to pick all of these files. I'm going to pick them all. Just click on open. And that's just going to upload all of these images right here. Now, if I come to the front, I can tell what kind of project app niche is. It looks like something like a real estate firm project. So I can come back here to the dashboard, and once all of these are done uploading, I'm going to go ahead and pick 4 images associated with this project. Okay. Now I am done updating all of the metadata inside of the project CPT. Let's see how we can present this in the front end. If we continue inside of our project single template here to add all of the metadata information, we can very easily do so. Inside of here, we can add the project completed date. We can very simply add a dynamic field right inside of here. We can just drag the dynamic field widget inside of here. And what do we want to fetch? We can add that particular meta field which we created in the back end. And to do that, we can switch the source here from this to metadata. And now we will be able to select the project's meta fields. For example, we'll be able to select the project completed date. Once we select this, we see it fetches this very easily inside of here. This looks completely okay for me. I can come inside of style right now and just try to adjust the style a bit. We can come inside of typography and we can adjust this to maybe look something like maybe heading 4 kind of size. Something like this is okay. We can then duplicate the field we have as the heading field inside of here. We can drag that just below it, just below here. And instead of project completed date now, we want to type in something such as client's name. And down here, we can also duplicate the same field. Just put that field right below here, the same dynamic field widget. And maybe inside of here, we want to select here project client. We see Crocoblock is the project client for this particular project, and we can finally add inside of here. Maybe we duplicate this one more time and bring this down below, and inside of here we want to say skills, so we can show the number of skills that we employed to get this done. And skills such as what? We can come inside of here, add the element, and what element do we want to grab? We want to grab the terms, the dynamic terms widget. And why are we grabbing that? Because we added all of the skills as terms. We see we added the taxonomy of skill, and inside of it we have a number of terms associated with each of these projects. So we can select or show all of this inside of here. And we cannot use the dynamic field widgets for that. We need to use the dynamic terms widget because we're dealing with terms, right? Make sense? Great. We can drag in dynamic terms right inside of here. And then we want to select the taxonomy to fetch from. So from taxonomy, here we want to select skill. And so it says it wants to show all of the terms. That's toggled on. We can see all of the terms shown right here. We have here delimiter. Delimiter just simply means what is going to separate each of these terms. And you see right here, if you look very closely, there is a comma. We can take off that comma if we so desire, and we can maybe add a space. And that's going to add a space between these terms. We can style this to look very nice. As you can see, these terms are linked, meaning that once you click on them, it's going to take you to the archive page for each of these skills. And when it takes you there, you can see all of the projects associated with those skills. So you can see how all of this is connecting together, not so? Great. Now inside of here, we can come to style. When we click on style, we can come down here to where we have the labels, and we can adjust this so that it looks really, really good. For example, we can come down here to where we have the text color, and we can adjust that to maybe this primary color, something like this. and then maybe give the background color a different color. Something like this should be fine. We can then add some padding inside of it. Let's just adjust this so it looks okay. Maybe give it a top padding of 0.5 m, and then a bottom of 0.5 m, and then a left and right of 1 m each. So we're just going to type in the 1 m. And then on the left, we also want to do the same for 1 m, right? So this way it looks something like this, and a person knows they can click on each of them and view each of these terms. So these all make sense. We can adjust it so that the corners of those labels is not as square as it is right now. We want to adjust it so that it's a bit roundish, just as we did in the previous stuff for consistency, right? For consistency. So we're going to add inside of here, maybe 0.5 rem, something like this. I think this is okay. I mean, you can adjust this to look better if you so desire, but I think this is fine for now. On the right hand side here, we can begin to add what the content is. And what is the content of this going to be? Very, very easy. We already added that inside of the project CPT. If we edit any of these projects, we take a look at what we have right here. We see we have inside of here the content. We should not copy what we have here and begin to paste it inside of here. Because remember, we're working inside of a template. We need this to be dynamic. We need it to fetch from the existing values. So we can very easily add again the dynamic field widget. We can just drag that inside of here. When we add the dynamic field widget, we can come to the object field, and instead of selecting the title right there, we want to come down here and select content. When we select content, what do you see happen? It fetches in all of the content as it is found inside of here. All of it right inside of here. This is very nice. Let's publish and see what we have so far. If we come to the front end, we just try to refresh this, see what we have right now. We scroll down, we see we have, details about the project and when the project was completed, the clients and the skills required for such project. If we click on any of the skills, for example, if we click on brand design, we go to the page where we have brand design and only the projects related to brand design show up. If we come back right here, we see we have everything we've done so far. Let's come back inside of our Figma file right here. We can scroll down. We see we have maybe a heading right here saying, look at more pictures or something, anything to say these are more pictures relating to this particular project. So to do that, we can come back inside of here, come back to the project template. Let's just come back inside of here and we can add in a new section. Maybe we can add one section right below here. Just click on add new section, click on Flexbox, add in a new section right there. We can, if we want to, just right click on this section, copy it and come down here. And instead of pasting that section here, we paste the style instead. And that way it just copies all of the style, including things like the padding. If you select this right now, come inside of advanced, you notice it is copied over the style, such as the padding and other such details. Now right here, we can just copy again what we have as the heading inside of here. Speaking of which, I think I prefer that heading to be bigger than this. So let's come inside of typography and come to H1 so that it's a lot bigger. We can also, if we want to, select that container and adjust the gap, the vertical gap between the heading and this other container just below it so that, everything is nicely spaced out. So let's select that container and we're going to come down here to where we have the row, and inside of here we can select rem, and right here we can add maybe 3 rem as the gap between the top of this and this container. We can also just copy the styles of this container, come down here to the next container and paste the styles inside of there. We can also, if we want to, just copy that heading, come down here and paste that inside of here. But for the second one, we know that this one is going to be, instead of a H1, we know that's going to be a H2. The style 2 must be a H2 style. I mean, if we so desire, the style is optional, but the tag must be a H2 because why? We only need one H1 on the page. Now for that heading, we don't want this saying the name of this project. We instead want this saying something like project photos, something like that. Anything that can help a person understand that there are more images relating to this particular project. And if we want to, we can then add a widget that helps us bring in that entire gallery. And we already have a gallery widget that comes with Elementor. We can drag that basic gallery widget right inside of here. Now it asks us to put in the images. We can manually select the images inside of here. We don't want to do that, of course. What we want to do instead is to come inside of dynamic tags, and JetEngine provides us with a way to get the gallery, the JetEngine gallery that we have created. So we can select the JetEngine gallery dynamic tag right here. So once we do that, we can then click on it and select the field, the JetEngine gallery meta field, which we previously created, right? So we can select that, come here, select project images, and we have all of the images associated with these projects fetched in for us. You can see them right inside of here. We see it's right now inside of 4 columns. We can say maybe make that 2 columns and bring in the entire image. Let's just say make it 4, so it brings in the entire image. You can see all of these beautiful images associated with each of the projects right here on the website. And this all looks good for us. If we want to, we can add some gap between it. We can also, if we want to, select this lightbox option right here, which will ensure that, you know, when a person clicks on any of these images, it just opens up the images in a kind of pop-up that, you know, shows this image in full. If we click on publish right now, we come to the front end, we refresh this, we come down here, we see we have the project photos. If we click on this, you see it opens up right here, and the person can, you know, go through each of these project photos and see all of the photos associated with these particular projects. This is coming together very, very nicely. And if we want to check this out, we can come back to the main homepage right here, and let's just click on a different project. See if things are populating correctly inside another project. Let's select Samer as an example, and inside of here you see the main image is correctly selected. You see right here you have Samer as the project title. You see the date of completion. You see all of this metadata. It's all different based on what project we're viewing. Down here, we see the project photos are all different too. It's all looking very, very nice. Nice plumbing photos for maybe a brand guide associated with this particular project that is a plumbing company. Whatever it is that you're building right here, you can make it absolutely dynamic. Now we can come back inside of the project single template. In fact, let's take a look at our Figma file. Let's see if we're done with this. Oh, we have one last section inside of here. And it appears that this last section is a section that I, just wireframed out here to help us see every other project that is not the current project we're viewing. A person can come on the website and view a particular project, and once it's done, he says, well, I need to see more. Where does he see more? He sees it maybe towards the end of that project single template. You want to make sure that what is shown there is only projects that are not the currently viewed projects. So a person is currently viewing, let's say, this project of Appnish. You want down here for the person to be able to view every other project except these projects of Appnish, right? So we can do that very simply. Let's just duplicate this section. We can just duplicate it. We can then, inside of it, we can take off this gallery widget right here. We don't need that. We can change the title here to other projects. Something like this should be fine. And then right below there, we want to add a listing of the other projects. And where do we get that from? We probably would just copy it from the homepage, because why should we suffer, right? Let's come back to the homepage. Instead of creating a new listing, we can just use the exact same listing. So let's just edit. We can edit with Elementor, grab that listing grid widgets. We can drag this out. Let's drag this one. We can close this out. I'm trying to declutter all of the tabs we have inside of here. I don't like too many tabs open. This helps me have, a clear head, a clear mind, a clear workspace, if you know what I mean. Now we can select the homepage editor right here. We can come down here, right click on the listing grid, we can copy it. When we come inside of here where we have other projects, we can right click, we can paste it right inside of here. Now, if we just save this, let's just publish it, and we can come back to the front end. Let's just view one of these projects. Let's say Appnish as a project, for example. We can refresh this. Let's take a look at this project and just scroll all the way down. If we scroll down here, we see other projects, and then we see Appnish again inside of here. It doesn't make much sense to have Appnish inside of here when Appnish is the project that is currently being viewed, right? So what you want to do is to ensure that this listing shows up without the currently viewed projects. And how do you do that? Quite simply, if you come back to the dashboard inside of here, let's just go back to the dashboard and create a new query. The query we want to build right now is going to say, hey, get 4 of the projects we have on the website right now, but ensure that you don't show the one we're currently viewing. We can very easily duplicate the query of projects on the site. We can duplicate this particular query. Once it's duplicated, we can edit that query because we need a new query right now. Inside of here, we can say query of 4 projects except currently viewed projects. Something like this will be fine, descriptive enough, and we can make use of that. We can come down here to where we have query type. It remains the same. We can scroll all the way down here. All of this is fine. Where we want to come inside of is where we have pagination. We want to confirm that that is 4. That is what we currently have loading on our website. We have only 4 projects loading on the homepage, right? Now we want to further modify this to say, if we're viewing one particular project, don't show me that project. Now we want to come inside of post and page and say post not in. So we're saying whatever ID you find inside of here, don't give me that in the front end. And what will that ID be? What we need to do is to select a dynamic macro, something like a dynamic tag, but this is used inside of a query. And this is a provision of JetEngine to help you to do dynamic stuff even inside of your query. Now, here's how it works. If you click on this dynamic macro option right here, we can come inside of it and select current ID. Now, this is a dynamic value, and it's going to fetch the current ID of the page or project or post that the person is currently viewing. And it's going to say, if this ID exists inside of this query, don't show me that ID. Now, once you're done with this, click on Update Query. We have a new query ready for us to make use of. We can come back inside of here. Let's close our home page. We don't need that. We have a project single template right here. We can refresh this just so that we can have a full list of all of the queries that we've created on our website, including the one we just created. If we come down inside of here, just scroll down, select our listing again. We can come inside of custom query right here. While keeping the listing grid itself the same, we can change the custom query. We can select inside of here, custom query, and select a query of 4 projects except currently viewed projects. And once we select that, we click on publish. Watch what happens when we come back inside of Appnish right here in the front end and we refresh that. Let's see if we still have Appnish inside of this list. We come here. We refresh this entire thing. Let's see what happens. We scroll down here. You see Appnish is gone. So dynamically, it knows that we're currently viewing Appnish and it doesn't show us that. This is very nice, don't you think so? Let me know in the comment section below if you understand what we've talked about so far. And while you're down there, be sure to hit the like button. And if you're not already subscribed, please do so that you're notified of another lesson that comes in the future. Shall we go on? Great. Now that all of this is done, we can test other things. We can come inside of Railway as an example. Let's just click on that particular project. Let's see if that project is showing inside of the list of its own other projects. So you can see that's its own featured image right there. We see its name. We see all of the dynamic information. If we come down here, we find Appnish here, but we do not find Railway inside of this list. All of this is looking very, very good for us. And if we come back inside of our wireframe right here, let's see if we have anything we've not covered so far. We appear to have covered all of what we have inside of that wireframe. And very easily, we can move on to the very next part. What we're moving to right now is a design of what our single post template will be for our post type, which is our blog, right? So we can very easily do that. Based on the knowledge you have so far, let's try to do this together. Let's try to do it quickly. See if we can come up with something very, very efficiently. We can come inside of dashboard right now. We can come down here and we can very easily create a template just for that purpose. Let's do that. We come inside of Crocoblock right here. We come inside of theme builder. We can change the theme builder selection right here. Let's say we want to select grid view. Let's just do it differently for the sake of having to do it differently, right? In this case, we're going to click on create new template. We're going to add a new condition. What's that condition going to be? We're going to say we want this to be on the singular, and singular of what? We say we want it to be inside of our posts. Once we select post, we can then click on create. Once we create that, it's going to ask us for that template name. What are we going to call the template name right here? We see it right here. We're just going to call it maybe single posts templates, something like that. Is that fine? Great. The header and the footer is the same, so we're going to add from library. We're going to select from the library of the headers we've already created this header right here. We're also going to select from the library we've already created this footer right here. And what's left for us to do is just create the main body of the single post template. So we're going to click to override it right here. We're going to create a new template. With what? In our case, we're using Elementor, so this is fine. We're going to say single post template, maybe design or whatever, or even single post template is completely fine. We can click on create. Once we click on that, we go to editor. We can begin to add what will be part of our single post template. Just as we did before, we want to do this very speedily. See if we can get this out as fast as possible. Let's see what we have here. Right here, we have the heading of whatever is the post right now on our website. So we can very easily just begin to copy stuff over from our project templates right here. Let's say we want to copy this one, just copy something, whatever we can copy so that we speed up our design, we can do that. We can paste it right here instead of here. We don't need this part, so we can delete it. We can just delete all of that, delete this one too, and delete the container that it is inside of. Now we have the title right here, which is a H1. This is completely fine. We say we need that to fetch the title, and this should be fine. If we want to, we can come inside of single site settings right here, come to preview and ensure that it is posts. Once we ensure that, we can click on publish, we can refresh so that it knows that it is within the post type, right? Now you can see it fetches hello world for us. This is nice. When we come inside of here, we see there is some gap at the top, at the bottom here. We can select that container. Let's add a little more gap. Maybe make this 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom, something like this. Let's see if that's okay. I think that's fine. Down here, we have, some excerpt, maybe a description or something about that particular post that a person has written. So we can add that inside of here. If we want to, we can add our dynamic field widget right here, which is going to help us to fetch our excerpt. And to do that is pretty simple. We can come inside of here, come to object field. We can come down here, select excerpt, and we have that right there. We see the gap between those two items. It's pretty big. We can select the container, come down here inside of layout, and down here instead of 3 rem, we can make that 1 rem, and this should be fine. This looks okay. If we click on publish right now, we come to the front end. Let's just try to view one of our posts in the front end. Let's just come to the back end and select any of the posts on the site. Let's say hello world right here. We see the template is already coming together quite nicely. This is very nice. Let's come back inside of our Figma file. We see down here we have an image, and this image appears to be the featured image of this particular post. So let's grab that and bring that inside of here. So to do that is pretty simple. We could come inside of our projects template as we did before, just copy one of this, maybe just copy this section, the entire section as we see it inside of here. Of course, because we know that it is dynamic, we expect that it should fetch the image as it relates to this particular post. So if we click on publish right now and we come to the front end and we refresh this, as you can see here, it fetches the image associated with this particular post. If you edit the post, let's just edit it, see if the featured image is what you find inside of there. Once you edit, you see on the right hand side here, that's the featured image right there. So this all makes sense, and this is looking very, very good. Now let's come back here. We see what else do we have inside of here. We have an image of a person and maybe, the name of the person and the title of such a person. Maybe the person who wrote this post. So we can very easily fetch that. Very, very, very easily. Down below here, just below the dynamic image, we may, if we want to, add maybe a container down here. Inside of that container, we can add a simple dynamic image widget right here. We can just type in the dynamic image widget right here. and it enters right inside of there. But right now, by default, the source is post thumbnail. We need it instead to fetch the user image for the person who wrote this blog post. So we can change the source here to user avatar. Once we change that, you see right there, it fetches in the image of the person who wrote this particular blog post, which is me. Hello, right here. Now we can come inside of here and maybe add another container just after it. Why are we adding another container? Because of the fact that we now have two additional items, the name of this person and the title of this person. So in this case, we want to add two elements. We want to use the dynamic meta option inside of here. The dynamic meta option is a very, very good widget that helps you to fetch dynamically all of the items associated with the author of this particular blog post, whatever blog post that you're currently looking at. So we can maybe, select any of these options or remove any ones that don't apply to us. In this case, we have date here, we have author, we have comments. We don't need dates, we don't need comments. All we need is author. And right here, we have the author of this, which is Tobi, which is fine. That's me. That's okay. The author settings, if we so desire, we can select if we want that to link us to the archive of this particular author, so that when you click through it, you're going to find all of the posts that this particular author has written. If you want that to happen, definitely leave that. But I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to select none. And that way it's just a regular text and it doesn't look like a link. Now, if we come inside of style, we can come down here to where we have items and where we have typography. We want to maybe come to typography and select, a better size here. Maybe something like this is okay. Inside of the same container, we want to add the next item here, which is maybe the title of this particular person. So we'll probably just add in a new element, a simple maybe text editor element just below that. And we can reduce the gap between both of them. We can come inside of here, reduce the gap, maybe bring it down to 0 so that there is not much gap between both. Inside of the text editor right here, we can come to style, we can come to typography, we can come down here and give it a small font such as this. And maybe we can just write below inside of the author. Something like that is okay. If you ask me, I like how this is turning out. Now I can select the main container that holds all of this. It holds this item and the container which holds these other two items. I want to select that main container and change that to Flexbox. Oh, it's already Flexbox. That's great. We'll come inside of here now to the direction and make that go row horizontal, just like that. And as you can see, it's positioned it just like this, side by side. Click and publish. Let's come to the front end. Let's refresh this. Let's just see how things are looking so far. And this is how it looks. I think I like how it looks so far. If we want to, I can make this a lot bolder, but I'm just going to leave this the way it is. I'm not teaching design here. Remember, this is not a design course. I'm trying to teach you web development here. So I want to give you your own wings and you grow it yourself and fly. All right. So let's proceed. We can come back inside of single post template right here. Let's take a look at what we have inside of here. We have here what appears to be breadcrumbs. And if you don't know what breadcrumbs are, they just kind of give you a visual hierarchy of how a user followed through to get to the current page that they are on. And usually people put breadcrumbs on the page because it's very, very good as an assistive means to help people to navigate around the website and know where they currently are and where they were coming from, right? So if you want to use a breadcrumb, you can absolutely do that here. Let's just duplicate this entire container right here and just have that container below. We're going to remove what we have inside of there. We're also going to remove the content right here so that we have a nicely styled container ready to go. Now that container, inside of that, we want to begin to add what will form this part of our page content. Well, you notice that it's a lot narrower, which you see right here, which is good because it helps you to be able to just read things while they're in the center and your head is not going sideways, especially when you're on a very big monitor. So we can adjust the width of that container by selecting it. And where you have boxed here, you notice that the content width here is boxed. If you change this to full width, you see it goes all the way from the edge to the other edge. But if you click on boxed here, it stays aligned with the other items. We can further adjust this. We can drag this in. As you can see right here, we're adjusting this, the width of the container inside of here. And this is very good because now we can very center align what our post content is going to be. So let's add two things. Let's add the first one, which is the breadcrumb. We can type in breadcrumb right here. Click on it. Oops, that's a pro widget. What do we do? This is pretty serious. How do we add this inside of here? You remember we were smart enough to buy the lifetime license of Crocoblock, so very easily we're able to use one of the available plugins to us to add what is locked behind a pro subscription. So to do that, we can click on publish, come back here, come to the dashboard. We'll come inside of the dashboard of Crocoblock. Let me install one plugin of Crocoblock that helps us add inside of it the breadcrumb widget. And that plugin, if you scroll down here and click on install, that plugin is called JetBlocks. If you come down here, not JetBlog, not that one, we're looking for JetBlocks right here. This is it. We can click on install. If you're not too sure about how I can know which plugin comes with what, just simply search for it. If you just search Crocoblock, search for breadcrumbs, just like this, and click on search. You're going to find breadcrumb widgets for Elementor. When you click on that, you see inside of it, you see it's part of JetBlocks. Very easily, you can tell which widgets belongs inside of which plugin in your entire Crocoblock suite, right? It's pretty simple. We can close that out. We can come inside of here. And now that we have JetBlocks installed, we can click on activate and activate that. Once it's activated, we want to do the next interesting thing. We want to come inside of our single post template. After ensuring that this is published, we want to refresh this template. And the reason for refreshing is so that it brings in the list of all of the new widgets that comes with the plugin that we just installed. This is the smart way to do stuff. We'll come down here and we can very easily now type in breadcrumbs. And here we find in a new widget that is brought in by JetBlocks. We can drag that inside of here and just paste that right inside of here. And as you can see, it just shows us a visual hierarchy. First of all, you go to the home page, then you go to dev tricks, which is the taxonomy term inside of which hello world belongs, and you come inside of hello world. We'll come inside of here. I don't like the icon that's separating each of these items, so I can change that to custom and use this /. This looks visually appealing for me. What do you think? This is very nice. What you want to add next inside of here, let's come back inside of a Figma file. We see right here we have the main content for that particular blog post, and we can add that. You remember how we did that? We added our dynamic field widgets. As we do it, we're going to do it again. Drag that inside of here, and it brings that right inside of here. Where we have source, we want to leave that as is, and inside of object field, we want to come down here and select content. And that way it brings in the content of these particular posts for us. And this is absolutely nice. We can click on publish right now. We can click on publish and come to the front end. We can refresh this. Let's see what we have so far. So we have the title, we have the excerpt, whatever is written inside of there. We have the image of the post. We have the author right here. And then we have the breadcrumbs and the main content of our website right here. Now let's come back inside of our post template right here, and we want to add the final section inside of this tutorial. We're just going to copy this. Let's maybe copy the section we see at the top right there. Let's just copy that and come down here and paste that section right here. And this one should say, first, we want to change that to H2 instead of H1. And we want to come to the style and keep this style as a H2 style so that it's, a style that matches the heading size. We'll come inside of the content right here, and instead of this dynamic field, we want to instead say other posts. Now down here, we also want to remove this. We will delete this particular widget right here, and we want to add in a listing of the other post, which is not the current post. You know how to do this, right? You come inside of here, come to JetEngine. Let's quickly create this because I trust that you know how to do this. We can add in a new query, or we can duplicate the one we currently have. Let's just duplicate this current query of blogs, come inside of here. Instead of having it say query of blogs copy, we want to have it say something like query of all blogs except current blogs. Just like we did inside of project, we can come down right inside of here, ensure that inside of pagination, we say that the maximum number of posts per page, let's say it should be 4 posts per page as the maximum. We can come inside of post and page and say post not in, and then say it should not be the current ID. We'll come back now, come inside of our homepage, and right inside of here, we want to edit our homepage and copy out the listing widget that is associated with our blog post. And the reason for doing this is so that we don't have to repeat the creating of such listing. We can very easily do this. We can come down here, right click, copy that listing right there. We'll come inside of this, we can paste that listing inside of here. Now, if we click on publish, we can refresh this just so we have a list of our updated queries, including the query that we just created. We want to select the new query, which will exclude the currently viewed post. Let's select that, come inside of here, come to custom query, select that. Inside of custom query, we want to select query of blogs except the current blog. Once we do that, you see it automatically deselects Hello World. Hello World is no longer on the list here. We have Exit World right here. When we click on publish, we're good to go. We come to the front end, we refresh this. Let's see what we have so far. We come right down here. We see other posts. We have Exit World. If we click on read more just to view Exit World, we see Exit World right here with all of the content associated with Exit World, which belongs to sport. As you can see, it's inside of here. And down here, you see the other post shows only Hello World. This way, you're able to dynamically query each of your single post templates so that everything is super dynamic and nothing is done manually. This is where we bring this lesson to an end. In our next lesson, we're going to be talking about dynamic conditions and how you can use this to ensure that your website is even more dynamic. For example, you may want to show some elements on the page based on which term that post belongs to, or you can show it based on who is currently logged in on the website. And this way you can very easily restrict content based on who you want to see it and by what variable or factor you want anything at all to show up on the page. Stay tuned for the next lesson. Smart people, this was lesson 9. My name is Tobi Salami, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Stay dynamic.